Health Watch is presented by UMass Memorial Healthcare. Here, caring for you.
Welcome to Health Watch presented by UMass Memorial Healthcare. Are you prepared for an emergency? Many of us think we are, but do you have a kit? Do you have a plan for when disaster strikes? What should I consider when planning for an emergency?
One would be to evaluate what your hazards would be in the area that you're in, or in your home, or where you live. The second would be to develop a communication plan with your family, which would include telephone numbers, a lot of the things that we take for granted. So we don't write down telephone numbers anymore. They're all loaded in our cell phones, but we may not have our cell phones. So it's important to have a written document that would have telephone numbers, points of contact for children in school or relatives, a meeting place of where you would gather if an emergency happened and people couldn't reach each other. So that's two of them. The third is an emergency kit, which is some basic supplies that you should have on hand in your home, and then some supplies that you should have with you if you have to evacuate and relocate. When we talk about emergency preparedness, we talk about all hazards. So it's not really critical that we make a plan or a kit for one specific hazard, but if we make it all hazards, those general things that I listed would help you and make you more prepared in any emergency.
What are some of the most important items you should have in an emergency kit?
The rule of thumb is to have enough to get you through for 3 days. So we talk about water and we talk about food. For water, it should be 1 gallon a day per person. So for example, for myself, if I lived alone, I would have 3 gallons of water in my emergency kit. Food products that are non-perishable, like granola bars, canned or packaged or dried fruits. Remember, if you use anything canned, you also need to have a can opener with that emergency kit. A first aid kit is very helpful to have as well. If you take medications or wear glasses or have prescriptions, those should all be in one location, especially if it's determined that you need to leave where you are at home. And then another item is to have pliers or a wrench. In the event that you do have to evacuate or an emergency occurs where you have to shut off one of your utilities, say your water or such.
In that kit, should you have a small amount of cash?
When an emergency happens, when power failure is down, so on the bank machines and the ATMs. And so in order to purchase, you may be required to use cash. Okay. So it is.
Is there anything I should do to my home when an emergency occurs?
You should always know your exits. Anybody that's in your house or staying with you should know where your exits are. Know where your shutoffs are. Know where your gas shutoffs are, your oil. Some of us remember the large red plates on our walls with a switch that will shut off your furnace and your oil in the event that you have to do that. You may need to shut off your water supply with a wrench.
What should I consider when planning for an evacuation?
In the occasion where you may have to evacuate, you're going to want to take some supplies with you, but you want to find a balance. You don't want to take a large amount of supplies that you're not going to actually be able to carry or that will not make you mobile enough. But you would likely have a blanket or some type of protection with you. Again, when we talked about your emergency kits, having your medications, making sure that you have your prescriptions with you. You may not be able to return home for several days. If you have pets, oftentimes you're allowed to take your pets to the shelter, but when you take them to the shelter, bring a leash or a crate and make sure that you bring food products for them as well.
What's a family emergency communication plan and why is it important?
It's important with family with children to, in your document, and I'm a big believer in a written document, is that you want to include the phone numbers of the schools or the contacts of the schools in the event that you are not able to get there, as well as having a plan for them so that they know aunts or uncles or relatives to be able to reach out to in the event that they can't. It's all about being able to connect after with things that we take for granted that may not be working. Cell phones may not be working. Although they will tell you if your cell phone doesn't work and you can't call through because of jammed lines, texting will often still work. So that's a nice thing for people to remember. Just because you can't reach someone by phone doesn't mean that you can't text. And another thing is to know a contact outside of your area so that if your area is affected, there's a way to reach out to a relative or someone that you know outside of your area.
Are there any websites or apps where people can get more information?
I always tell people that there's a one site fits all, and that's the ready.gov, and it's easy to remember. Yep. And you can find like all the information that you need. So you can find on how to create a plan, how to make a kit, how to be informed, because that's the other key, is how do you get the information that you need? By listening to the radio, checking the web, watching the television, knowing what a warning is when it comes across the screen. And then the fourth thing is being involved. So there are many people that ask, well, how can I be involved in the community? And that ready.gov site will show you all different options to be involved.